Hey guys, so it's day one of this Halloween challenge, and I'm going completely unscripted here. Like I had my notes notepad ready to take notes during the film last night, but I was like, okay, now I'll remember that. So here we go. So day one is starting off with 1973's The Exorcist, and a grey background indicates a film that I count as having not seen before. And even though I did see The Exorcist like years ago when I was like 12, 13, maybe 14, but again, like just saw it once years ago and couldn't really retain it, so I'm kind of counting this as going in blind, you know? The Exorcist is from 1973, and it's directed by William Friedkin, and it's based off a book which was also loosely based on a real-life case where a young boy was suspected of being possessed and they performed an exorcism. And of course, to this day, it's not known if he actually was possessed or it was just, a form of mental illness, because it was the 1940s, so, you know. Most of the cast were pretty unknown, because we have Ellen Burstyn in the lead as playing Chris McNeil, and they wanted a name for this part. They had the first choice was actually Audrey Hepburn, which, yeah, that would have been interesting, but she wanted filming to happen in Rome, and the budget wouldn't really allow that, so they had Jane Fonda, Shirley MacLaine, and Anne Bancroft in consideration as well, but they all kind of were either unavailable or just turned the part down, and Ellen Burstyn really kind of pushed for it, and the studio didn't really want her, but William Friedkin cast her anyway.
How did they get an exorcism?
Well, the first thing, I'd have to get him into a time machine and get him back to the 16th century.
Jason Miller, who plays Father Damien Karras, he was a playwright, who'd never acted in film before, and they had another actor in consideration for the role. And he really lobbied for it because he'd experienced something very similar to Father Karras, where he'd spent a couple of years studying to become a priest, but then he had a crisis of faith and just kind of left that as well. So he could really relate to the material in a way, and so he was really pushing to be given the part, and obviously he was cast. Again, two unknowns in the lead roles, and this is why Max von Sydow who has not a lot of screen time. He's only there in the opening and in the finale, and he's billed second. That's because the other two were just mostly unknown.
Oh, I love you.
And then we have as Regan. That was a very hard part to cast, which, as you can probably understand, for ages, William Friedkin was worried that he wouldn't be able to find an actual child actress who could give the part what it needed. So at one point he was even considering, older actresses of like 16, 17 who just looked 12 to be able to do this. But then it was he arrived at 12-year-old Linda Blair, who was brought in to audition by her mother, who thankfully was not a stage mother, so there's no horror story there. And she actually had read the book, so she understood fully what the story was about. And there's a funny story where he asked her what does Regan do when she's possessed, and she mentions like all the things, and then she mentions masturbating with the crucifix, and he's like, "You know what masturbation is?" And she's like, "Yeah, sure, don't you?"
You want to loosen the straps.
She's heavily identified with the role now, even though she has loads of other credits on her resume, but this is not the role that I first knew her from, so...
And pay your rent on time. Because otherwise, it's going to be a case of repossession. And I don't want to go through that again.
The first thing that really stuck out to me was, especially with the opening, was just how visual it was. The first rule of screenwriting is... show, don't tell, and like The Exorcist is just a perfect example of just how to do that really well. The opening lasts in the first bit in Iraq lasts about 10 minutes, and then there's like another 10 minutes in Georgetown following Chris and Regan for a bit, so that's about 20 or so minutes of screen time. And during this introduction, right, I counted maybe 10 lines of dialogue. Okay, it's probably more, might be less, but, you know, kind of, and not like, you know, exposition lines or anything, just kind of casual lines said by other characters. And think about that, 10 lines of dialogue in 20 minutes, because everything is visual. And that was just really incredible to me, because like the scene where, you know, Max von Sydow was just walking around the square in Iraq, and there's just like all these things, and it's just like, even though I'd seen the film and I know what happens, it's like I could feel the tension myself, and it was just like, when there's that shot of the statue of the demon, that I even kind of felt myself like kind of shivering up my spine a bit, and it was so effective. And again, I love films that can just tell their story visually and don't have to rely on dialogue, and that's why this film is just considered a classic right now. There's more to it than that, but, you know, that's one of the main things.
Didn't tell you what you did.
He didn't mention it.
Another thing that really stuck out to me was the tone. And again, this was not something I was expecting. The Exorcist has a really sort of intense realism tone to it, you know, feeling not necessarily documentary style, but feeling as if you were there, you know, as if these were real people that you know, and you're kind of dropping in on someone's real life, like, and this is a real family that this is happening to. And just because like just the dialogue is so naturalistic as well. Like when the dialogue starts really happening, it is very naturalistic, and not once do you feel, you know, oh, no one would say that in real life, you know. It's just like the whole time it's, again, you're placed right there with them, and I think that's kind of what makes it so effective as well, you know, because you're not really, there's no kind of sense of like, oh, this is just a set, or this is just a story, or there's nothing kind of elaborate, or, you know, there's no kind of like smoke and mirrors. Like, it all feels very natural, as if this is something that's actually happening. And just there's a scene that sticks out to me where it's Chris and Father Karras have met, and, you know, they talk for a bit, and then Chris asks about an exorcism, and just the way she says it, it really kind of got me, because it was like, this is exactly how it would be, you know, if you were meeting someone in real life and you were just like, this is completely crazy, but, you know, can you exorcise my daughter?
How do you go about getting an exorcism?
Beg your pardon?
And again, that's just really emphasizes the realism of it. And I think that's just, again, I keep saying effective, and like that is why this film is so effective, because, and just like all these other kind of narrative tricks as well, where it's for example, spoiler, 3 characters that we know die during the film, you know. The 3 of them, none of them die on screen, and it's like 2 of them you only hear about secondhand, and the 3rd one, you know, he dies like while we the audience are seeing characters who are outside the room. And again, that's how it is in real life sometimes, you know, because you're rarely there for death, you know. It's always heard about secondhand, or, you know, through the phone, or, you know, you're never there for it. So again, that just makes it feel all the more real.
You keep any drugs in your house?
No, of course not. Nothing like that.
All that kind of grounded realism, you know, it's hard to do that well, you know, like not every film can do that well, and some stories don't serve that, but it serves the story well here, you know, because it's treating it as if something is actually happening, right? All that build-up is in service of the final 20 minutes, which are, you know, way more fantastical, you know, like...
Father Karras. Damien, the response, please, Damien.
That what makes it work, you know, just the fact that you feel as if this is something that's really happening, and then when all these unnatural things start happening, you're not really taken out of the film, you're just like, oh god, whoa, you know. And again, what I was kind of on the lookout for things like, obviously, everything about this movie has been parodied over time, you know, like the cursing demon, you know, the head turning around, the pea soup vomit, and like the power of Christ compels you. And I was kind of like on the lookout, okay, does this still hold up even after all the parodies? And the answer is yes. Oh my god.
Cocksucker. Be silent.
Like, there are even times, like, just like the little things, like where the cuts appear on her arms, and just like, it's this finale is so intense and it's just so good. You know, it works so well.
To tramp underfoot serpents and scorpions.
And performance-wise, anyway, Jason Miller, I thought, yeah, fine at first. Obviously, kind of, I knew going into this that he hadn't necessarily acted in film before, so I was kind of on the lookout for that. And during his scenes, like at the start, you know, I have to admit, I wasn't like fully engaged as I was with, say, Chris and Regan. Maybe just because I felt, you know, I just felt like they were more interesting or like more engaging to watch. But, you know, kind of as the film went on, I really kind of did appreciate like what his performance is. And again, this is a great character. You know, this is a great role. You know, a priest with a crisis of faith and having to kind of do something so archaic to save the day. And, you know,
Now kindly undo these straps. If you're the devil, why not make the straps disappear?
the scene in, obviously, the exorcism where the demon is imitating his mother's voice and he's just kind of, you know, turning away and just kind of trying not to listen to it, that really fucking got me. That was so... wow. Yeah. And so he was nominated for Best Supporting Actor for this, which, you know, I'm surprised, not because of his performance, but again because of the type of film this is, but we'll get to that. And but yeah, I say good nomination, and yeah, he definitely deserved it.
As it was in the beginning, is now, and ever shall be, world without end. Amen.
And of course, Ellen Burstyn, I don't think she gets enough credit. You know, we love our Meryl Streeps, our Dame Maggie Smith, and Helen Mirren, and Shirley MacLaine, you know, even though I haven't seen her in much. But Ellen Burstyn is so underrated because no one ever talks about how brilliant she is, and this is a fantastic performance, you know.
What the hell do you mean going off and leaving Regan by herself? Are you crazy? Her window's wide open. The whole room is freezing.
Didn't he tell you?
Didn't who tell me?
She brings the story back to realism to make it more effective, where it's like she's a mother who has no idea what's happening to her daughter and wants to help her and is just powerless to stop it, you know. And just obviously I'm not one of those people that, you know, thinks intense acting is good acting, but like just the scenes with the psychiatrist and the scenes where she's begging him to exorcise her daughter, it's just like you can easily see why she's one of the most respected actresses today, you know. And then obviously we have Linda Blair play. This is not an easy part for her to play.
Oh, I heard differently.
Oh, you did. What did you hear? Huh?
I don't know.
I don't know why I'm surprised. This film is a classic, so obviously everything was done really well, but there was something I was kind of on the lookout for as well, and that's there's been a sort of growing like feeling towards the voice that they use for the demon speaking up from Regan.
Your mother's in here with his cash. Would you like to leave a message?
They kind of say that, oh, they should have left Linda Blair's voice normal. It would have been way more effective if it was a child speaking, you know? That would have made it creepier. And like people have parodied the voice so much. And again, as I got into the middle of the film, I was even kind of thinking, yeah, it probably would have been more effective if Linda Blair had been speaking. But then when I got to the end, spoiler, when the demon has left Regan and has gone to Father Karras and he jumps out the window, and then you hear Regan screaming "mother" and she's back to her real voice, I felt such a sense of relief in a way. It was like, because obviously the demon has completely taken over Regan and, you know, that's not her anymore. But then when we hear the voice at the end, it's like we instantly know that she's back to herself. And again, that was like a real sort of again, it was a sort of feeling of relief I was not expecting to have. So, you know, I'm definitely fully on board with the demon voice there. So.
Strike Terror Lord into the beast.
The Exorcist was actually, believe it or not, it was the first horror film to ever be nominated for Best Picture, which is amazing, you know. This was back when the Oscars weren't as biased as they are now, you know, where everything has to be a period piece or a Holocaust movie or something like that, you know. So you can really tell this film, it got there on its merit, you know. It's like its artistic merit and the fact that it was such a commercial success as well. So I think it is so hard for horror to be recognized by the critics. And you know, they say we're kind of in a sort of renaissance now, where they considered like the first boom for horror films to be the late 60s, 70s, and so now, and they think now we're kind of getting back there, you know, with Get Out getting a nomination, and The Shape of Water could be considered a variation of a horror movie. So and obviously Parasite could be considered something as well. And but yeah, the main thing I take away from The Exorcist is obviously it's an amazing film just from an artistic point of view. It's not a fun film. Some horror films are done just to kind of like lose yourself in the world, and there is a sort of like a fun factor to it. It's like going on a roller coaster where like being scared is just part of the fun, right? The Exorcist is not like that. It's like the feeling of dread, or not necessarily a feeling of dread, just sort of like not, oh, what's going to happen next. It's more like, I know something's going to happen and I don't want this to happen, but I know it's going to happen anyway, if that makes any sense at all. So, and again, I wish so much, I wish first of all that I hadn't seen it when I had. I was way too young to appreciate it, way too young to appreciate like all the kind of the genius that I know I can appreciate it for now. Again, I wish, not possible, but again, I wish I could go back in time to 1973, Christmas Day, and I wish I could be one of the people who went to see it, like I was queuing up down the street and just in the cinema, just watching it and just kind of really taking in like just how, how unexpected and how new it was. And, like without, my years of like seeing all this stuff in for horror films and getting desensitized to it. So I just really wish I could have experienced it for the first time, because again, it's been copied and parodied and imitated and everything else so much. It has in some way kind of lost that freshness that it had when it was released. But, that's no fault of its own. It's like, because it's so good, so many people wanted to capitalize on it and like imitate it and kind of were inspired by it. So, I suppose it is a testament to the fact that it, in some parts, it's not as shocking anymore because it was so effective that it just... But it still holds up so well, and I'm really glad that I watched it, and so now so hopefully Thomas Quill really enjoyed this video. This is his favorite film, and we don't often agree on our tastes, but this is one area where we're definitely in agreement. So
Do not my cry come unto thee.
Almighty Lord.
So that was day one, me kind of going completely unscripted, and I'll probably be a bit more articulate for day two, which, again, day two will be a film that I definitely have seen before and pretty regularly, and it is The Craft. Yeah, because there's a remake on the way, and this was going to be further down on the list, but I just decided, I really want to talk about this, so that video will be out tomorrow, and I'll be watching it later on tonight, so... thank you for tuning in, and hopefully soon I'll come up with like a fitting intro, a fitting outro to sign off. So, Exorcist, yay.